So we are winding up toward the end of Data Day Seattle 2016. I managed to capture Sid Anand. Thank you for joining us.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. Glad you could come by the table and talk to us. What people need to know about Sid Anand is that he's with the Apache Software Foundation. Yep. With QCon of San Francisco and London, and then also Agari.
That's correct.
Right. So Agari, let's talk a bit about that. What is that?
So Agari is a email security company. It's been around for about 7 years. Its prior incarnation was Ironport, and it was sold to Cisco about 10 years ago, maybe a little bit more than that. And the problem that it addresses is one that affects all of us. If you know anyone who's been phished before, essentially received an email with a link that required them to present some sort of credentials, and therefore were hacked or phished or owned. That's sort of the problem domain that Agari attacks.
Okay, which is very common, especially for people who have parents or grandparents.
Absolutely, and that's really what inspired me to join. My father-in-law, who lives with us, is a frequent attack vector for these sorts of campaigns.
And some of them are just so believable. I mean, they're taking imagery, they're copying forms. And if you don't see the lock, heck, maybe if you see the lock, I don't know. Then you don't know if you're on the legitimate.
Right, and they're very savvy. Typically, what they'll do is they'll send you an email pretending to be your bank, and probably 90% of the content on that page will be legitimate in that email, and there'll be one link, the one that they're asking you to click on, which will not be legitimate. And that's sort of what we do to help track which emails are bad. We will look at all the links on the page and find out that, hey, 99% of the links are correct, one isn't. This is a phish.
Nice. And so Agari, is it a middleman between a mail service like Gmail, or is that how it works?
Right. So the first product that we launched about 7 years ago is a B2C product. Most of the companies I've worked at use it. So LinkedIn, Netflix, eBay protect their consumers by leveraging one of Agari's products called Consumer Protect. And essentially what that does is it helps secure the email channel between those businesses and the US email inboxes like Gmail, Yahoo, Hotmail, Office 360. So those emails are authenticated in that channel and dropped if they're inauthentic. So it won't even show up in your spam folder. It'll be dropped before it gets to you.
Well, that's good. Yeah, it's such a easy, scam for people to fall for, unfortunately, and it's good that was there an inspiration for it? Well, like you said, it was your father-in-law.
Absolutely.
That's good.
And that's our first product, and our second product is applying this exact same thing to businesses, B2B email.
Okay.
And I worked at LinkedIn. LinkedIn was hacked. I don't think we ever described or divulged the details of that attack, but in most cases, they're email vectors. Whenever this sort of thing happens, a small company loses control of credit cards numbers or email users and passwords. It's really important to protect people's data that reside on enterprises, and that's why we're attacking that product now, market now.
Okay. And do we have a name for that product?
It's called Enterprise Protect. So
Enterprise
the other
Protect.
one was Consumer or Customer Protect. Now it's Enterprise Protect.
So we know that you've worked for LinkedIn, Netflix, Etsy, eBay, Apache, like all these huge companies. So one thing I was wondering is if you could tell us a little bit more about your background, and why some of the most important tech companies are so hot to get their hands on you.
Sure. So my background for the last 15 years has been managing data at scale. So all of these companies, be it Netflix or LinkedIn, or even eBay, as they grow and as they acquire more and more customers, their data needs grow as well. They're also managing very high traffic So just being able to serve data at scale is a problem for them, and that's actually where my expertise lies.
Okay, all right. And you have how many years of experience when it comes to that? You know, off the top of your head?
So about 15 years.
About 15 years. Okay, yeah. Here's an interesting tidbit. And Lynn believes that you had given the first Cassandra talk at the first cloud computing group in the Bay Area back in 2010 at the Apple headquarters. Does that ring a bell? Does that sound right?
It is actually incorrect.
Oh, it's incorrect. Okay, so let's set the record straight.
Yes, no, but I had given a talk that Lynn helped with. It was the first NoSQL talk, actually, so it even predated the Cassandra talk.
Okay.
It was probably the first NoSQL talk at Netflix. So I helped move Netflix to the cloud and to NoSQL.
Yeah.
In 2010.
Yeah.
And that was we gave a talk at Facebook. I think there were about 800 people or something in that talk.
Yeah. Yeah, and then probably that. I mean, that was so early in the at the birth of NoSQL. I mean, you probably had a lot of people scratching their head.
Right. We, in fact, were very early adopters of NoSQL. We adopted, at that time, SimpleDB. That was about a year and a half before Cassandra actually gained any traction. And so we were the first to move from Oracle to a hosted NoSQL solution at that time. I want to say it's 2009 when we did that. So in 2009, I sort of spearheaded the work required to move 90% of our data from Oracle, which was in our data center, to SimpleDB at that time in the cloud. And it was successful. And then in 2010, we continued that transition. I think by the middle of 2010, we were done. And then 2011, we started the work to move to Cassandra. And the reason for that was most Amazon services, I would say all Amazon services, don't work across regions. And we needed a NoSQL data store that worked across regions because we were about to launch in the UK. So Cassandra was our solution. So we essentially spent all of 2011 moving from SimpleDB to Cassandra.
Okay.
At the end of 2011, we did it.
Yeah.
And I think in January of 2012, we launched our UK service.
Wow, that's impressive. What was the initial reasoning behind the move to SimpleDB from a standard SQL data? Was it just improve access time or decrease cost because it was Oracle? Like what was the motivation?
Right, great question. So I would say that the Dynamo paper came out a few years before, and the idea at Netflix we had some outages, and at that time we were still the DVD shipping company. We weren't the video on demand sort of service. So when we were a DVD shipping company, we had a database-based outage, and I think we actually had to refund people money. And our leadership at that time was thinking about high availability. Like if we were going to go into the streaming world, we had to be as available as television.
Right.
And you don't have television outages.
Right.
So we knew we had to make a drastic change, and we knew that Oracle wouldn't meet our needs. A relational database wouldn't meet our needs.
Right.
So we opted at that time for a NoSQL solution, something that put high availability or always available first.
Yeah, and obviously it's very successful. I mean, look at Netflix today, right? Is there a project you're working on right now that you're really excited about, or maybe a technology that is on the cusp of breaking a lot of new ground for you? Or
Sure. Many different things, I would say. One of the reasons I joined Agari was that I noticed they were very early adopters of all things cloud. They're a small company. Their hands are not so I was at LinkedIn before. I led the search indexing effort. I built a type ahead service for them. But at very large companies, when you think of Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, their hands are tied in terms of the type of innovation they can do, because they're just trying to keep the system up.
Right.
I joined Agari at a time when data was not tying our hands yet. The data volume was not yet tying our hands. And I knew that they had a very innovative way of looking at the cloud. So I came there and started building their data pipeline. And we're using some very cool things, and we're about to open source some very cool things. We're using Kinesis. We're building a real-time pipeline based on Kinesis, Lambda, their new Kinesis analytics. We're going to open source a schema registry that's based on Lambda for Abro. We've built our own Airflow-based auto-scaling sort of thing. And then kind of next to this is my work in Airflow, which I'm here to present about today. Airflow is sort of the rising player in the workflow scheduling scene.
Okay.
In the past, we've thought about things like Uzi out of Yahoo, or Azkaban out of LinkedIn, or Luigi out of Spotify, but none of those really meet the needs of data scientists today, of the BI teams today. Like a year and a half ago, Airbnb created this thing called Airflow. It's totally taken off. 40 companies are using it right now. 166 contributors, 9 committers. It's about a year and a half old. It's taking off like a storm. And that that's what's getting me excited.
Okay. Airflow, yeah, and for people who haven't heard of Airflow yet, or whatever, I'll include a link to the GitHub, or where would we be linking to? The
GitHub would work.
To GitHub, yeah, and that way people can become more acquainted with this. Like you said, if it's a bleeding edge tech, I know everyone watching the video is kind of like, okay, yeah, let's hear it. That's very good, Sid. Thanks for coming to visit us here at Day to Day Seattle 2016. Is this now? This is obviously not your first Data Day, right?
It is my first.
It is, okay.
And I've completely loved it.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to the next one. I love the fact that it's brought together leaders from, especially the data engineering and data science field from across the U.S. I'm super excited to be here. Got to be part of it.
We're glad to have you. We're glad you could speak, and glad you could stop to see us. And look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you.
All right, Sid.